because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in their home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You with GB News, the top story. Well, we understand cordons remain in place around Buckingham Palace tonight after a man handcuffed himself to the main gates earlier on this evening. Scotland Yard said the man began threatening to harm himself as officers approached him. The situation is ongoing. Officers have been negotiating with the man, who's reported to have sustained a number of self-inflicted slash injuries. Police say they're working to bring the situation to a close as quickly as possible. Well, the Prime Minister said today his thoughts are with the family of an 8-year-old girl who died after a Land Rover crashed into her primary school in southwest London. Police were called just before 10 o'clock this morning to the Study Prep School in Wimbledon. 16 people were treated at the scene, 10 were taken to hospital. Police say the driver, a woman in her 40s, has been arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving. Detective Chief Superintendent Claire Kellan says the incident isn't being treated as terror-related.
Officers, along with colleagues from other emergency services, provided first aid to a number of people who had been injured. Very sadly, one of the children, an 8-year-old girl, died at the scene. Our thoughts are with her family at this incredibly difficult time. The driver of a car, a woman aged in her 40s, stopped at the scene and has since been arrested for causing death by dangerous driving and remains in police custody.
The RMT union has announced a strike on the London Underground. Its members will stop work from the 23rd to the 28th of July, though services will run on the 24th. They're walking out in a continuing dispute over pensions and working conditions. The government says it's going to work towards handing over material requested by the COVID inquiry by next week. It's after the Cabinet Office lost its legal challenge over Boris Johnson's unredacted WhatsApp messages. Lawyers for the government had argued the material would be irrelevant. However, the High Court has ruled the inquiry must be given full access. And the government's launched a bid to take its Rwanda deportation policy to the Supreme Court. Last week, the Court of Appeal overturned an earlier High Court ruling which found Rwanda could be considered a safe third country. It comes as the House of Lords dealt a blow to the government, rejecting its illegal migration bill. MPs now having to consider a series of amendments. And lastly, the new online conversation platform Threads, which is built by the owners of Instagram, has received a cease and desist letter from Twitter less than 24 hours after it launched, according to media reports tonight. Elon Musk's company accuses Meta of hiring dozens of former Twitter employees who have access to trade secrets and confidential information. Meta has responded, saying no one on the Threads engineering team is a former Twitter employee. The new app has more than 30 million sign-ups in less than a day. On TV, online, DAB+ radio and the TuneIn app. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon, a.k.a. The Big Dog, and I'm joined by the Dream Team. It's the thinking man's gammon, Paul Cox, and a man who smells of gammon, Lewis Schaefer. Sorry, Lewis, it's just because of the diet. I felt bad about that one.
It's not kosher.
No, you're right. I'm sorry about it. How are you both doing anyway? It's the Dream Team. It's the new Morecambe and Wise I've heard on Twitter.
We are the Dream Team.
Yes.
The three of us.
The three of us.
Oh, thank you for including me.
You're not going to talk about our special relationship at all, Lewis?
We do, but I think it's... I have people watching that I don't want to know about us.
OK, and maybe I should just get in a blanket apology now for all the swearing, and then just get it out of the way. Just get it out. Everyone says, oh, you're apologising all the time, Nick. But let's just get it out of the way at the start. All right, so we have a quick look at the front pages. It's what the show's about. So, the Daily Mail has horror at end-of-term tea party. That's the tragic crash, of course. The Eye, Home Office paints over Mickey Mouse mural for children at Asylum Centre. Very strange story we're going to cover in a minute. The Guardian, court tells ministers to give Johnson messages to inquiry. That's the Rishi Sunak WhatsApps. The Financial Times, global stock markets tumble after US borrowing cost hits 16-year high. The Metro has horror at school tea party, that tragic story again. And the Daily Star, we've been eating our Weetabix all wrong. Hard-hitting stuff from the Daily Star. And those were the front pages. So, Paul, let's start with the Daily Mail and that terrible story.
Yeah, as you've already said, horror at end-of-term tea party. An 8-year-old girl has sadly died, and there are 10 left in hospital. There's not much to say about this. The lady's been arrested. It's just horrific. Our thoughts and prayers go to the families of everyone involved. Terrible, terrible story. Don't know what else to say about it, to be honest, Nick.
No, there isn't much more to say. I had a friend die when I was 8, and it affects the whole school, it affects the whole community. You don't really ever get over it. Absolutely tragic. So obviously our condolences to everyone involved. And it's an ongoing case, so we can't really say too much about it. So maybe let's move on and do this one at the top of the page, which is, can a person who was born male really breastfeed a baby? What is that about, Lewis?
Well, it's an interesting story because it depends a lot on language, and that's what these issues are. I mean, what do they mean by breastfeed exactly? What do they mean by a born male? What do they mean by being born? What do they mean by a person? What do you call a person?
Right.
What do you call a baby?
It sent you into an existential sort of spiral.
Is that, you know, you can't just answer a question like this. I think the answer could be yes.
Well, anybody could place a baby upon their teat.
Right.
And simulate feeding.
Yeah.
That baby would get nothing from it, and I'd worry what the person having their teat suckled was getting from it.
Yes, and I was worried you were about to simulate it yourself, that your hand was placed strangely. Go on, Lewis.
No, but first of all, you're presuming a baby. This is a baby. How many times have our loved ones called us babies? Yeah. Maybe we've been called babies.
Oh, you think it's just a term of endearment for a disturbed adult?
Endearment.
Who wants to be breastfed?
Yeah.
I don't want to rule out you breastfeeding me.
Right, it could happen. You guys will do basically anything.
I don't want to roll that out.
You'll do anything for, like, Twitter followers, is what we've established.
For me, that's the next stage.
And it could be you know, a lot can be gained from being on a person's breast, male or female.
Clearly. I think this comes from that weird viral story about the man who claimed to be a mother and was trying to breastfeed, and it was all very, very strange. I think that's where that comes from. Although, actually, it's also official policy at the Bank of England now.
Yes.
Because they all follow Stonewall.
It's mad. It's absolutely mad. But you're right. What is anything now?
Yeah.
No, a man can't breastfeed a human baby and deliver any nutrients.
Okay.
And for the people out there, I say it's up for debate.
OK, that's good balance. Good.
Yeah.
All right, that's what we're here for. Let's move on and do The Guardian now, Lewis. They've got this WhatsApp message story.
Yeah, it's another one. This is one of the ones that got me into trouble before. Boris Johnson's WhatsApp must be handed to the COVID inquiry in blow for Rishi Sunak. And it's a blow for Rishi Sunak, because there are
Sunak.
Which is
that was how Biden said it. Sorry.
Is that how Biden?
Yeah.
Because
you did better than Biden. You didn't do well, but you did better.
Not better. I'm actually worse because I know how to pronounce his name. That means I'm living in this country. If I was in America, I'd be happier, probably richer, maybe, and I wouldn't pronounce his name properly. Like I say, there's Americans don't care about Britain. That's why we can't pronounce your prime minister's name.
Good point. Anyway, sorry about the story. That was my fault.
It's about the story. Is that he doesn't want to give up the information because they said the WhatsApp messages were unambiguously irrelevant, which is nice of them to say that it's not ambiguously irrelevant. But the fact at the end of the day is that this is a COVID inquiry. And everyone knows where I stand on this thing. It was a horrible time, but the fact is that Boris Johnson made a decision, which was to go against his own judgment, and he instituted a lockdown.
Yeah.
And then he violated his own lockdown.
Yeah.
So he should be punished.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, though, Lewis, Boris, and we'll get on to you, Paul, is that Boris must know there's something bad in these messages because he's desperate for them to be released. What has he seen in these messages? Has Sunak said to him, kill them all? You know, because he's like, I think it's very important they get the message because he's got nothing to lose. We've seen all his worst stuff already, but he's like, show them Rishi's messages.
This is wonderful from Boris's perspective. He doesn't care now. Everyone expects Boris to say crazy things. I can't wait to see Boris's WhatsApp messages. It's going to be amazing, isn't it? Just sort of photographs of his whiff-waff and jokes about smelly lefties and maybe some stuff about lockdown. It's going to be fantastic. We all know that if any of our WhatsApp messages were to be released, there would be no winners.
There would be no winners. People would say inappropriate and unnatural uses of meat in my thing.
Just think about the things you say in public, Lewis, on national TV.
Oh, my God.
We can only imagine.
Imagine the WhatsApp messages.
And can I just point something out? Is that... I forgot what I was going to say. Is that Boris Johnson... A lot of people believe that Boris Johnson knew that the COVID was very dangerous and that violating the lockdown was putting people in a dangerous situation. I don't believe that, but so many people actually believe that he's so arrogant and he thought, you know what, I don't care if people die.
No.
I don't believe that.
No, I certainly don't believe that. But I do think it's a shame that all these messages come out, the lockdown files and so on, and it never really changes people's views of lockdown. People still say, oh, we should have locked down earlier. So I'm worried that this will just be the same. Boris will use it to take out Sunak. The inquiry will use it to have a go at more Tories. And nothing will really come out. Nothing will really change. And they will all just stick to this idea that lockdowns were great, which I say they were terrible. I said that from the start. So
this is not going to change anyone's view at all.
All right. Well, with that, let's move on and look at the eye, Paul.
Yeah, Home Office paints over Mickey Mouse mural for children.
Muriel.
Yeah. That's one of his cousins.
Muriel's been painted over. She's not welcome anymore.
Mickey Mouse mural for children at Asylum Centre. Now, let me just... What's happened is the Home Office has confirmed that murals of cartoon characters painted on the walls of asylum centres in Kent were instructed by Robert Jenrick to be painted over. Now, essentially what the government and Robert Jenrick have said here is that they didn't want these places to be welcoming. We don't want asylum centres to be welcoming for people going in there. The difference here, and the thing that's very cynical for me, particularly from the left, is that children are involved. And, of course, I don't think anybody truly wants children to feel sad and unhappy wherever they are. So if this is unaccompanied children going into it, terrified for their lives, worried and scared, going into an asylum centre, I'm not sure that it needed to be painted over on that basis alone. However, for Albanian 25-year-olds that are pretending to be children...
Right, fair enough. Well, the thing is, Paul, if they wanted to put off people coming over, which apparently was the intention, why didn't they just post our NHS statistics or a big mural of how much it costs to rent in London, in my area, just says 2k per month, and then they all just go back across on the bus, start paddling the other way? What do you think?
Or say that Louis Schaefer lives here.
Yeah, that could work.
Kept a lot of people away. Why am I bad-mouthing myself? That should be you, Nick.
I'm so nice.
I think, you know what, unfortunately with children, you got to be nice to kids even if you don't want them here. And it's like what I had to pretend that I was nice to my own kids, even though I wasn't happy to have them around.
Right. Good thing they won't find out.
Yeah.
You're not like saying it on national TV.
It's unseemly. It's unseemly to be.
It is a bit own goal, though. Really, these things for me are, you know, in the optics of politics, where things are quite straightforward. Sometimes you can make things look better than they are. This is one thing for me that they could have avoided doing.
Yeah, he's being seen as a heartless villain, as opposed to, you know, someone with a practical solution. Let's paint overall joy. Anyway, let's have a quick look at the Daily Star, Lewis.
Oh, the big news, the Daily Star, which is becoming more and more my favourite newspaper. And the headline is, "We've been eating our Weetabix all wrong. Boffs revealed jaw-dropping etiquette faux pas." Faux pas, my son did a DNA test and he found that I was his faux pas.
Whoa, that's good. A proper joke from Louis Schaefer. Old-fashioned Catskills, Broadway, Borscht Belt, whatever it's called.
I'm so pleased with myself.
Amazing.
Really. And they say I don't do jokes. But it's the Daily Star uses the term etiquette faux pas, and I can't believe that anybody who reads the Daily Star can understand that.
Yeah, so it's all about, we've been eating our Weetabix wrong.
Yeah.
I asked a couple of people, and they've said we put the milk in first. Completely perverse, sick. Obviously,
It's weird, isn't it?
It's weird. You put in the Weetabix to see, not that anyone eats this rubbish, but you put in the, adults don't eat this, but you put in the Weetabix, you have to pour the milk on and then know what the ratio and how much it's going to go soft, right?
You're not putting fish into a tank. You don't, you know, like you fill the tank up with water and put the fish in.
Right.
This is just, I mean, the biggest thing for me here, it is a great point. I think it's one of the best points I've made on the show. Is that Susan Boyle or Sid Little? That's what I want to know.
Oh, yeah. Can we see the picture?
I don't know if our viewers at home can see that.
That's me. That's not either.
Yeah.
Can we see the picture? They cut to me. I'm not Susan Boyle.
Up there,
that
up
picture.
there.
Yeah.
It's amazing Photoshop.
Looks like Jeremy Clarkson, maybe.
The bad thing about Weetabix is it's basically dehydrated diabetes. If you,
and that's what they used to say on the adverts.
If you want to get diabetes, and mixing, and if, let's say you're using full-fat milk, which probably most people aren't, and you're mixing it with carbohydrates, it's basically the Randall cycle. Some of the people might understand this. The Randall cycle kicks in, and your body can only digest either carbohydrates or it digests fat. Fat. And
so you either pass out the other end, raw milk or raw Weetabix?
No, it just sits there waiting to be digested. Yeah. And it basically does the carbohydrates first.
Yeah, no, it's not good. We got to go to the break. But on this show, we all eat steak for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I just want to say, and that's how we're on TV and smashing life. All right, that was a fun section, you know, apart from some of the stories. That's all for part one. But coming up, Andrew Neil attacks GB News, and we're just going to do the whole section on that. See you in 2 minutes.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening. from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the live desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon, still here with Mr. Paul Cox and Dr. Lewis von Schaefer, as we have just decided to call him. Let's get straight into it with The Telegraph. And Andrew Neil has attacked his former employer, GB News. Ironically, his complaint is about impartiality, Paul. See the irony?
Yes.
Thank you.
Politicians should not be allowed to present political news programmes as they do on GB News, according to Andrew Neil, the channel's former chairman. So we should first of all thank Andrew for help forming the channel, and maybe thank him for leaving. I'll leave that with I'll leave that with everybody else.
You giveth and you taketh away, Paul.
Exactly. So what? Quite the dilemma. Quite the dilemma, really, because I'm sure there are Ofcom rules. I mean, the thing about Ofcom rules is you can change them. They were changed throughout the pandemic, you see, so that we could have all sorts of things done and broadcast to us and told to us about the COVID pandemic. So it's not as if these rules aren't flexible. They are, on the whole, pretty much leaving GB News alone. And I think that should be that should be a valid point to start with. But however, you know, GB News is punk. I can't think of another word that describes it better. GB News is punk. It's a bit like Millwall, right? People don't like us, but we don't care.
Right.
The idea is that we are giving voices to people that actually quite a few people would like to hear from, but a very small, loud minority don't want to hear from.
Yeah, and I should say, loads of people love us across the country, but a small sort of media elite don't like us. That's where we're different from Millwall. I should point that out. But good point. And this is quite strange, actually, Lewis, because few things here, and people say I mention Ofcom too much, but unfortunately this story is about Ofcom. So firstly, Andrew Neil's saying we don't need politicians taking these jobs. But Michael Portillo was on his show this week for years and years and was excellent, and he's now on GB News. Another couple of things, Farage and Mogg are doing incredibly... Farage just won an award, the Trick Award for Best News Presenter, so they're actually smashing it. And then he says they seem to be all Conservative, but would a Labour MP do it? I'm sure we would have them if they would. And then lastly, he says, I'm just surprised at what Ofcom allows the channel to get away with. And there he means you, Lewis, but that's the one. that's the one thing. Sorry to throw it in. What do you think?
I think you're right. It's like well, first of all journalists are failed politicians, and they're failed. Most of them are failed before they even start being politicians. It's like a politician just is sort of delayed in getting it. And what they're saying is if there was a channel where there were failed Labour politicians, they would not complain. Why can't we have failed Tory politicians?
Failed is strong. I mean, you know, Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg just been made a knight. I mean, is he or whatever it is?
But at the end of the day, whose business is it anyway? If it's known that someone is a politician, and it's recorded that they're politicians, if we want to have them on or they want to have them on, that's fine. If people want to watch them, that's fine. Why should we have the government telling us?
But, does he have a point about when it's a politician, a Conservative politician, interviewing a Conservative minister in some cases? Is that a problem with impartiality, Paul?
Yeah, they're almost... it could be argued there almost certainly is. It's, you know, where would be the partiality? They're not that all Tory MPs agree with Tory MPs.
No.
The point I would make, it just echoes actually what Lewis was saying, is that there's no smoke and mirrors here. They know that. Let's call it as it is. Rees-Mogg. We know that he's a Tory MP. That's not a secret, and it would be weird if his views weren't conservative-leaning. That would be odd. So that's not a secret either. And he's talking about the things that matter to him. So none of those things are a secret either. So there isn't as if anybody's trying to, secretly change
Pull the wool over
views.
you. No, and on the impartiality question, as if we didn't all know Emily Maitlis's views for years on Newsnet.
Exactly.
It was so obvious what her views were. Then she quit, and it became even more clear. She thought what we always knew she did.
Because impartiality is impossible.
Yes.
It's impossible for journalists to be impartial. It's possible for a TV station to be impartial, and it's sort of that's the problem with the problem is the BBC is the state broadcaster. They're the state propaganda network. They're pretending like they're not, that they are impartial. This whole concept of balance is ridiculous.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I kind of agree. We should just have the American system. Everyone just says what they want. It's clear that it's opinion. Anyway, you're in luck, Lewis, because he also says the BBC doesn't have the money to do much anymore and is in trouble. So the only thing I'll say to just end is that I don't agree with Andrew Neil, but if a Tory politician takes my job, I might change my mind, because there are a lot of them on the channel now. Let's move on and do The Guardian. And Keir Starmer says he's laser-focused on poverty. Now, when Lewis says that, he just means he's shining a bright light at a homeless person. But, Paul, what do you think of this one? I threw Lewis in, even though it was your story, just to, I don't know.
Thank you very much.
Lewis is always relevant. It doesn't matter what the story is or who it's going to. Labour government will focus on ending poverty just as strongly as Tony Blair's 1997 administration, Keir Starmer has said. Now, for me, this is classic niff-naff and trivia that politicians say at this point when on the precipice of becoming leaders, right? One thing we should ask ourselves at this point, and I was somebody who voted for Tony Blair in 1997. It was the first person I ever voted for. I was pleased that Tony Blair and the Labour Party were in at that point in time. In 2007, we were 2% higher in terms of child poverty than we are today. Statistically. I looked this up just before we come on air. So, when Labour left government, or towards the end of their fantastic time in government, child poverty was higher than it is now, only by a couple of percentage points. But you'd think, and we all say this all the time, there's been 13 years of pretty disastrous government. Nobody really mentions what's happened in those 13 years. There is lots of context to that story. However, I think it's quite stark that actually Tony Blair delivered nothing in terms of child poverty. Now, I didn't look at the stats at where it was, but we are 2% lower right now. Now, I'm sure the pandemic has something to do with that, but we ignore the pandemic every time we talk about the Tories. So right now, we are better off than we were at the end of the Tories.
OK, interesting. One thing that I thought was a bit funny here is that they said, why is none of your 5 mission bullet points, why doesn't that include poverty? And then he just goes, oh, well, that's the foundation on which they all sit. Yeah, so you've got to that's like a ridiculous way to get around it. And the other thing, Lewis, and I don't know if this proves Paul's point about sort of laying the foundation before you get elected, but he said that he got his excuses in early and said that they're inheriting a really bad, really bad economy. So he got that in as well. What do you think?
He's saying there's no money. There's no money to do it because basically both administrations, but whatever, the long-term thing, have just been giving away money. Let's just say this. Let me say this. I don't know about Tony Blair and poverty. I know there are lots of people out there who love Tony Blair, and they love what he did. And maybe people were poorer at the end of the day, but in terms of giving young kids poor kids violin lessons and opening up playgrounds in schools, Tony Blair was totally beloved, okay? I don't think that's the case. I think socialism is the quickest path to poverty. So the fact he's laser-focused on poverty, Starmer, by bringing in socialism.
You think he means creating it? Yeah.
I mean, I'm not convinced that Tony Blair was an advocate for socialism. He was just light Tory, really.
Well, it depends. We could do a long debate on that. Peter Hitchens says it was Euro-communism. Other people say it was sort of post-Thatcherism. Some people say it was a sort of stealth left-wing revolution. We could talk a lot about that. But, yeah, one thing is clear. Starmer says he's laser-focused on ending poverty, just like Tony Blair, but didn't actually end, did it? I did notice that. It's still ongoing. Let's have a quick look at The Guardian. And the boss of Shell has said cutting fossil fuels, I can say it, is dangerous. It's good to hear an objective take on this issue, Lewis.
Yeah, it is. Well, climate campaigners have condemned cynical suggestions by the boss of the energy company Shell that cutting the world's oil and gas production would be dangerous and irresponsible. And it is, let's face it, it is cynical. It's like having Ronald McDonald saying that stopping eating hamburgers would be dangerous. and it would be dangerous. I mean, it would be dangerous because hamburgers are great. Not the bun. Do not eat the bun. Just eat the meat. Go to triple. Maybe I'm giving an advertisement for McDonald's.
And burn coal.
Yeah.
Eat meat, burn coal.
Club seals.
Yeah. Is at the end of the day.
Which is when we're on.
Where we're on.
You can tell right now.
We're in a nice, cool studio. Yeah. It could be a hot studio. I know Nick you hate the hot studios. And like it's been said many times, that cold weather has killed far more people than hot weather.
Right. Well, there was actually a sensible point in this, though, Paul, which you hear it at first, and you're like, yeah, of course the Shell guy wants fossil fuels, but you look at it, and he's saying it'll be dangerous and irresponsible to cut oil and gas production because of the cost of living, and that is a fair point, isn't it?
Yeah, my view's never changed on this point, actually. He's absolutely right to say this. Now, it could be seen as cynical. We get that because he's the top man at Shell or whatever. However, if you are changing from one system to a new system or new means, you always do so when the new system is working, tested and in place. You cut over to that system. What the whole 2030 business and everything, all this cutting fossil fuels business is advocating right now is basically chucking all that away and just going straight to it, and we'll figure it out when we get there. It cannot work that way. If you want this to work, you have got to have everything on the table until you can prove it works otherwise.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree.
I think Paul is that's like too reasonable. And remember, this is a comedy show, Paul.
Sorry, yeah.
Well, yeah, he's there to be reasonable, Lewis, and you're just there to say whatever you want, really.
Yeah, well, I'll say whatever I want to. I'll say this is not a cost of living issue. This is a living issue. They want us dead. They don't want. They want us dead. They don't want us to be warm. They want us to be cold. Cold is super. It's killing people. And you know what? I know lots of people who are in Just Stop Oil, not Just Stop Oil, but I know all these people, these left, eco people. I consider myself an eco people. And I think it's insane. Okay. It's not even insane. They want us dead, so it's a deliberate thing.
Okay, well, I feel probably now it's my boring role as a host to say they don't want us dead. I mean, I don't know who they are. I don't know, but they possibly also don't want us dead. Some people think... No idea, guys. This is...
I'll tell you who it is.
Oh no! I was going to move on. Go on. Is it quick? Is it quick? And will it get you in even more trouble?
No, it's the One World.
Oh, I see.
It's the people who want one world, everyone living.
The globalists. Okay. Well, there you go. Let's move on and do the Telegraph. And a woman who believes it's better to get measles than get vaccinated. And I can see why we've come to you on this story, Paul, to get us out of even more trouble, rather than some people on the show.
Dr. Jane Donegan speaks out years after telling an undercover reporter she would definitely want children to get mumps. As you've already alluded to, Nick, this is a story about a GP who thinks that natural immunity is better than vaccines. I don't think that's divisive. I understand the need to remove mumps, but however, it can be achieved a number of ways. It did kill a lot of people, and it doesn't anymore, so we should say that. However, the issue I have with this story is that she is both a GP and a homeopath. You can't be those two things. I don't think that's possible. It's a bit like being a policeman who's also a criminal.
Yeah.
That would never happen.
Would never happen. Has never happened. But do you know what, Paul? You're right about the homeopathy. That's where I sort of draw the line, because I'm a vaccine sceptic, but I'm also a droplet sceptic. You know, the little droplets that are going to save you.
Lavender.
You know, yeah, it is nonsense. But what do you think, Lewis? Because take it on the chin is a very unpopular thing, isn't it? She's sort of going for the Boris, maybe we could just take it on the chin. But then again, with chickenpox, you're allowed to with that one. But all the other ones, you considered a kook and a dangerous person. What do you think?
I mean, what she advocated, she never told anybody, at least in the thing. She didn't tell anybody, don't take the vaccine. But she said, if you do not take the vaccine, don't tell anybody, because don't tell your doctor, whatever, because they're gonna start doing bad things to you. They're gonna think you're a bad person.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have total sympathy for this woman. And the fact is that I am leaning, and I'm not going to, you know, you're going to say this is crazy. It's one of the Louis Schaefer.
No chance.
But, I mean, I think she's right. I think there's a lot of people who think that measles is not a virus and that the measles vaccine did nothing to end the measles epidemic, and it was going down way before they instituted and you can deny it. You can look it up. that they said the measles was dropping by the time they came up with the vaccine.
OK, well, we've got to... Well, some people think that, including Dr. Jane Donegan, so there it is.
No, you have to...
And I have to say, well, yeah, now you're telling me to do the apologies that people hate Lewis at home. But yes, other people think that disagree with Lewis's point, and I don't have an opinion. I'm just here to keep the show moving.
No.
Lewis, for 3 minutes over break, so I'm failing in my one role at the moment. So let's crack on. That is it for part 2. But coming up, Mermaids loses its court case, Greta Thunberg gets arrested, and Canada gets even sillier as a country. See you in a minute.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions, and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio, and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's get straight into it with the Times. And the dubious trans charity Mermaids has lost its legal case against the LGB Alliance. A rare win for sanity, Lewis.
Well, you could say that, or you could say it's a loss for the truth, according to the trans charity Mermaid. This is I think this is an incredible story because this is basically a trans group suing a non-trans gay and lesbian group, trying to get them denied non-profit status, as we would call it in America.
A charitable
status, to stop them from getting tax advantages so that the gay group, so that the trans group will have free ride to promote their beliefs. And so it's the first time this has ever happened, that one group is suing another group to stop them from getting And it's a really interesting story because it's all about the T in the LGBT. One is LGBT Alliance, which doesn't have a T, and one has a T. And it's like the question, does pineapple belong on pizza?
I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, and I personally, and I don't know, we could take a vote. I personally think that pineapple does belong on pizza.
I'm the same.
I like pineapple on pizza.
Oh, we've all agreed. One of us needs to disagree for regulation.
I can't. I don't want anyone to not send me free pineapple pizza.
Yeah, if you don't agree, then just tweet us at Lewis Schaefer.
Yeah. Don't just tweet Lewis either.
But on the go on.
And
sorry,
so what I'm saying is that should the no pineapple sue the pineapple people?
I see.
Or can we all live in peace?
Okay, you went full Trump there. The pineapple people. Okay, well, yeah, and the other point about this, apart from the pineapple thing, which is very salient, the other point, though, Paul, is that the judges couldn't actually agree, or whoever, the tribunal judges couldn't agree whether it should have charitable status or not. But they said that's even hypothetical and irrelevant because they agree that there's no standing. So Mermaids had no standing was the legal term.
Yeah.
That's what Mermaids did, was do a long statement about why this was actually a win, which reminded me very much of The Office when Brent says, "That's the real quiz. That's the real quiz." When you throw the shoe over the top. They were like, "We've still won, guys." And I was like, "You haven't, though. You've lost. You've lost horribly." Well, we've all got great analogies today. What did you think, though, Paul?
Well, I mean, first of all, the stupidity of the counterproductiveness of this whole case is ridiculous. But irrespective of that, and anything else you can accuse Mermaids of, they are proving themselves to be a cruel and pernicious organisation, as far as I'm concerned. That anyone who fights their opponents in a way that would undermine themselves like this should be viewed with suspicion. They are, as far as I can tell, from seeing everything I'm seeing, they are not particularly interested in the subject matter. They're interested in winning. They're interested in their narrative being part of the mainstream narrative. That's all they're interested in.
Yeah.
They don't care for the children involved. They don't care for the real problems.
Yeah,
and can I just say something?
Yeah.
That's typical of men.
Nice. OK. Well, yeah, Mermaids certainly has a dubious record. I don't know what I can say. I don't know what my legal standing is, so let's just leave it there and do the Telegraph. And the V&A Museum has removed age-appropriate books pushing age-inappropriate books, pushing gender ideology. And this is actually a second rare win for Sanity, Paul, in a row.
This is definitely another win for Sanity. In fact, it's just a win for normality. The institution which caters to under-14s, very relevant, under-14s, takes 2 titles off display over concerns about their gender and sexuality themes. Now, the really important thing to remember here is that the books that they've taken away were for 14 to 18-year-olds, and this is an organisation that caters for 0 to 14. So straight away, it's not appropriate for the kids that they're dealing with. So it's a good thing. And this shouldn't be a divisive story. This is absolute normality. You take a look at what you've got in front of you. You've got children in front of you. How old are these children? Oh, they're under 14. Do they need to be sexualised in any way whatsoever? Do they need to learn these adult themes and adult issues? The answer to that is no, they don't. That's not why they're in this establishment. That's not why they're going to this institution, and they're doing the right thing.
Right, and the age aspect has given Tristram Hunt, the director, an easy out, because he can just say, well, it's age inappropriate. But it's also inappropriate in general. I mean, one of these books, Seeing Gender, includes a thought experiment encouraging cisgender male readers, which is a term we don't accept anyway, to imagine having breasts, a menstrual cycle, or a feminine name. And why would you teach a child that they need to imagine that and confuse them? Lewis, what do you think?
Yeah, I tend to think this is a non-story because either way, both sides can claim victory on this. That the trans groups can say, look at how bad the young Victoria and Albert Museum is, and the other side can say, look, we're winning, we're making progress. That we force the V&A young V&A to take the books off.
OK, well, we've got to press on and do The Guardian. And Greta Thunberg has been charged with disobeying Swedish police during a protest. Clearly, she's a dangerous countercultural figure and not in any way protected by the elites, Lewis.
Well, it's interesting. This is in The Guardian, the Greta Thunberg charge. They were involved in blocking a port of Malmo, of oil tankers coming in. And it just shows what you can get away with as a 15-year-old. You can't get away with as a 20-year-old.
Right.
She's losing her charge. No matter how small and malnourished she looks, people don't like her anymore. Only 20 people came to help her out. And the sad part for us is it just shows it's bad to get old.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting take, because I wondered, because we all saw that video on Twitter where it appeared, I think it was a different arrest, but it appeared that the police were waiting, the cameras went on, they were all laughing, then they picked Greta up, and people were saying, well, this is staged. So I don't know, but I don't know what I can say on that, but people saw the video. But now, is Lewis right, actually, that people are getting a bit sick of Greta? Is she sort of... Because she's got a bit more radical on some things, where even the sort of elites seem to be a bit annoyed with her. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I'm all for it. I'm all for it, because every action that Greta and Just Stop Oil take at the moment is sabotaging their own endeavours. We've all forgotten what they're complaining about. We just see these... You look up ridiculous and pathetic in a dictionary, and it's just photographs of people holding orange signs. We don't know what it says on the orange signs. We just know that they're absolute losers.
Yeah.
Like, OK? And we just know that straight away that whatever they're doing is ridiculous and pathetic.
Lately, they're sitting on tennis courts.
Oh, man. I mean, twice yesterday at Wimbledon, at the Ashes, they're just attacking Middle Britain.
Yeah, but what I can't decide with this, we've got to move on, but is whether it's the pantomime of Greta, and she still is very much the elite sort of totemic figure, or is it just actually they are getting bored of it? I don't know. Let's find out in the future. But let's move on and do the Times. And the Church of England are considering dropping their £500 fee for weddings. I suppose with so many people flocking to the church, they can afford it, Paul. I've gone with a lot of sarcasm tonight, I'm afraid. It's the lowest form of wit.
I could tell. The Church of England should ditch its fees of more than £500 for weddings because they should be seen as a gift from God, according to a formal proposal from a vicar. And, of course, this makes sense. I mean, the irony is, and kind of counters what you said, is the Church of England is probably one of the wealthiest organisations in the country because of its charitable status, because, like Scientology, doesn't get taxed, OK? Yeah. I'm not, by the way, conflating Scientology and Christianity. I think that would be ridiculous. I'm really not. However... I mean, this is an organisation that do a bucket collection at the end of every gig. So they've got lots of money, and I think that they should be encouraging traditional weddings. I think that it would be great to see more of it for particularly people who want to, and to put that behind a paywall, I think is not good.
You beat me to that because the Reverend here, the Reverend Tom Wolford, who's from New Longton near Preston, I'm from near there, so he's a top lad. He said, I think it's short-sighted the way we look at it, because if the wedding's free, most couples will donate, and that is a bucket show at the Edinburgh Festival. You don't charge, you hold your bucket at the end. We've all done it here.
Oh, yeah.
But actually, just quickly, I think he's right, because you want to get people into the church. Weddings are down from the Church of England, 31,000 in 2019. Yeah. It was 220,000 after the First World War. Anyway, sorry, go on.
No, you're right about that. And the church gets the bar money for selling the beer and the whiskey. At least they should. If they were smart, they'd set up a bar there.
They get the orange money for those little oranges with the candle. Remember it, Chris Dingle. Anyway, I'm a Christian, but you don't know it. You don't know that so about. You're looking at me blankly. Different religion, different country. All right, sorry, carry on, Lewis.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, a lot of people they don't know the difference between a wedding and a marriage. We need more marriages. Marriages are way down. Weddings are way down. But wedding is just a ceremony, and marriage is the commitment for life.
OK, well, we'll end that. But we need more marriages and more weddings in the Church of England, or any Christian church, or probably any church. Let's do the guy. I'm being so safe tonight. I've got ridiculous. I've got so sort of non-controversial. Let's do the Guardian. And a Canadian judge has ruled that a thumbs-up emoji can represent a contract agreement. All I can say is eye roll emoji, Lewis.
Yes, this is quite interesting. A company sent farmers in Saskatchewan an I don't know how to explain it. He said he wanted to confirm a flax contract, and the guy responded with a thumbs up. With a thumbs up.
And it's whether that was a yes or...
And whether then a Canadian judge said that was OK, which is, I find, a bit shocking, because I've never been to Saskatchewan, but it's the kind of place that I don't think they really know what a mobile phone or a computer is, let alone have opposable thumbs.
OK. Very quickly, Paul,
I've got family in Saskatoon and Saskatchewan, but what I would say is no emoji should be contractually binding whatsoever, because if it is, I've got a lot of laughing out loud to make up for.
Absolutely. And I don't get the idea that a thumbs up is a contract. To me, it's often just saying, OK, Lewis, and then moving on, which is, you just... Yeah. Not necessarily.
But
Lewis.
the guy owns,
anyway,
owns £86,000.
I know, it's shocking, ridiculous. Anyway, we've got to give you a thumbs up and move on, Lewis, because that is it for part 3. But coming up in the final section, is university still worth it? Florida bans woke people, and why climate change will make you blind. See you in 2 minutes.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything, I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point.
And action.
Sergeant, read my superstar panel. They're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News. Britain's watching.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. It's the final section. Let's do the Daily Mail. And in case you were worried that climate change alarmism is going away, they're now saying that climate change is making us blind, Paul. I mean, that's ridiculous.
It is, isn't it? Now scientists say climate change is making us blind. So many things I am doing are making me blind, Nick. I don't know where...
List them all.
I can't list them all right now. I can't list them. There's mainly two. They found those who lived in warmer regions were up to nearly 50% more likely to suffer serious vision impairment compared to those in cooler places. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I don't believe this.
Yeah.
I simply don't believe it. I've read the story. It's another story full of numbers and statistics about people who live closer to the equator, probably not wearing sunglasses when they should. But we are human beings. We are supposed to have our feet on the ground, the sun above our head.
Yeah. What was particularly ridiculous is that, one, hotter countries are often poorer, so it could be that. But two, they compared New York with Florida, where people go to retire. Of course their eyesight's bad. They're retiring.
Yeah, but that's not even the question. That's not even the cause. The cause is, probably, I'm just guessing, is that it's saying in the deep south of America. And those people who are it's getting warmer down there. They don't compare it. I don't know if they compare it to other places, but who have more glaucoma and more cataracts. And that is a direct result of having type 2 diabetes, hyperinsulinemia.
There it is.
Yes, exactly. Those people are the fattest people, the people in Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana. Those are the fattest people in America. And what this is when you see a story like this, you call Carl. You have to call Carl. Who is Carl? Correlation, association, risk of, link of, Carl. It's nice. It's like saying they're more drowning in the summertime. There's a lot more drowning when people eat ice cream, and
Yeah.
that's because it's in the summertime.
Yeah. It's not causal. Yeah, you're right, Liz. I thought you'd gone mad for a second, but actually it was quite a good point. And they're blaming ultraviolet light in catching infectious diseases in the heat and pollutants in the air, but it's nonsense. It's nonsense. Yes, it's nonsense. Absolutely. We all agree, and we're right. We've got no balance on that one. Let's do the Mail with a story about junior doctors. So who better to handle it than senior doctor Lewis Schaefer?
Senior Lewis Schaefer. It says on my Twitter account that I'm a doctor.
Yeah, and that wouldn't lie ever.
Yeah, it wouldn't lie, no. And please stop calling us junior doctors. Whinge, junior doctors. British Medical Association rules decades-old phrase is demeaning. And I said this, I don't know whether you were on the show when I said this. I've said this many times. Stop calling them junior doctors. They're doctors anyway. They're not even like they're not even like trainee doctors. They're like real doctors. And what could have killed them? To have done it years ago? Just, throw them a bone?
Yeah, I mean, some of them have been there for a decade, Paul. They're not junior. But do you think people would be more inclined to call them senior if they showed up for work? I mean, 75,000 on strike. Just an at-work doctor most people have settled for. Call them whatever you like.
It's a flipping good point, Nick. I mean, let's get them back into the workplace and doing the doctoring, and then we can have a chat about what's on their name badge.
All right, well, let's smash through it and do the next one. And the Telegraph asks, is a university degree still worth it? No, it's not. That's that one dealt with. No, let's have a quick go at this one, Paul. What do you think?
I mean, I don't think we're going to disagree. Disillusioned and in debt, today's graduates are struggling. Is it time we paid more attention to the higher education alternatives? Now, look, of course, if everyone's got a degree, it's worthless. When I was 18, 1998, through to about 2002, when I would have been going to university...
You were 18 for 4 years? I'm sorry.
Sorry. You're absolutely right. I wasn't. I was 22 at the end of that period. And that's the period I would have gone to university. But I didn't go to university. I did a work day release where I went to university through work. So I was doing a practical job and getting my academic education.
Sounds like prison.
It was a little bit, but at the end of the day, if I'd done the alternative, all the alternative sounds like is an 1830s holiday where everybody just goes to find themselves, find out what their pronouns are for 4 years, and they cut 80-90% of them come out with something relatively useless.
No, you're right. It was Blair's idea. 50% should go to university, devalues a degree. Then the people that don't go, there's a stigma, and it stops people doing apprenticeships, etc. Lewis, quickly, if you can, what do you think?
Same my feelings exactly. I have two beautiful sons. And one ugly one. I've got two beautiful sons, and one has a degree, and he's got no girlfriend, and the other one who does have a degree is with this beautiful Thai woman, and
okay,
there's a moral lesson with
right
every
there,
story.
Right there.
All right. Well, let's skip one and do the Telegraph now. And is Florida really banning woke tourists, Paul?
No, it's not. It's not at all. I mean, Florida has shifted rightwards in recent years under Ron DeSantis. But is this affecting the visitor experience? I don't think it is at all. I mean, I've read the story, of course, and this story is trying to tell us that because Florida has lent to the right and has been rebellious against things like COVID lockdown, being a bit of an outlier, that, of course, it must be putting people off. But it's not. I mean, we all travel to places... Well, I don't travel that often, unfortunately, but lots of people travel dependent on where the weather is good. They don't care who is in charge. I mean, we travel all over Africa. We travel all over the poorest parts of Europe because that's where the sun is.
I see. You've gone for the sun. I think it's to do with... Is it to do with the state just being well run, Lewis? You've got Texas and Florida, and now the best places in the United States. The only thing is the Democrats come and then they ruin them. But isn't it because of that? But also the tension is, as the article is saying, they also need custom. So go on.
Well, it's what's his name? It's the guy who said it. This guy Rick Scott, who's the former governor, and he did a YouTube video which I saw, and he basically said, if you're a socialist, he said, if you're a socialist or a communist, don't come to our state as a tourist. He's a nobody. He's a nobody. Gay people love Disney. Disney is the gayest thing in the world.
OK, didn't expect that ending, but there it is. Always fun with Lewis. The show's nearly over. Let's have another quick look at Friday's front pages. So the Daily Mail has horror at end-of-term Tea Party, that very tragic story. The Eye has Home Office paints over Mickey Mouse mural for children at Asylum Centre. The Guardian, court tells ministers to give Johnson messages to inquiry. Of course, the WhatsApp messages from Rishi Sunak. The Financial Times, global stock markets tumble after US borrowing costs hit 16-year high. The Metro has horror at school tea party. And the Daily Star, we've been eating our Weetabix all wrong. Very big story from the Star. So thanks so much for watching. That's tonight's show. Thanks to Paul and Lewis. Headliners is back tomorrow at 11. If you're watching at 5 a.m, then stay tuned for breakfast. But for now, from me, it's good night, good morning, and God bless.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time